Welcome to the Drivable Podcast. I'm Ali Akbarian and over here is Brad Williams. And today we're talking about something a little bit different. We're talking about car racing and V8 supercar racing with Todd Hazelwood. So Todd is actually an able-bodied V8 supercar driver, but that doesn't really matter for what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how maybe people could get into industry and maybe how people can explore racing. And Todd is one of only 25 supercar drivers in the country. He's known as the most exciting talent in the championship, racing the number 3 CoolDrive Auto Parts Ford Mustang with the Blanchard Racing Team. With a pole position and a podium now under his belt, Todd is working and racing harder than ever to achieve his very first race win in the 2023 Supercars Championship. So having been in a supercar recently, I'm pretty excited about this one. Brad, you ready?
Oh, mate, I'm super jealous of your lap around Bathurst. I think it was more than one lap around Bathurst. You keep bringing it up in every episode of the podcast. I'm getting really jealous of it, but I'm actually more excited now to talk to Todd about the real-life racing car driver rather than talking to you about it. So let's get this underway.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Drive Able podcast, where each episode you get to listen to two of Australia's leading professionals in the area of driving and community mobility for people with disabilities. In each episode, they interview drivers, carers, and industry experts and share the insider's guide to driving with a disability. Here are your hosts, Brad and Ollie.
G'day everybody, I'm really excited to get into today's interview, but before we get started, we just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors who make this show possible, Mobility Engineering and Williams OT. This show takes a lot of time and money to put together, and we just want to say a massive thanks to our sponsors for helping you bring our guest today in our podcast. Today we have Todd Hazelwood. Todd Hazelwood, g'day, how are you going?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on the show, and look forward to having a good chat.
And thanks very much for joining us. We can see if you're looking into this on Zoom that you're in your car, you've pulled over to the side of the road or wherever you are now and joined us. We really thank you for taking the time out of your very busy and hectic pre-season, I guess it is, with your new racing team. Todd, do you want to give us a little bit of a background of who you are and what you do as a life career?
Yes, thank you. It's a busy life that I live. Being one of 25 drivers that get to call themselves a supercar driver here in the country of Australia, and for me, I'm essentially living my childhood dream, and that's racing motorsport as a profession. So for me, I count myself very lucky, very fortunate, and it's been one hell of a journey. This year marks my 21st year of racing. I first started racing go-karts at the age of 7, and the passion to be involved in the top tier motorsport started from a very young age. I've always been very competitive. I've always wanted to win by nature, and it's been a hell of a lot of work to get where I am today, to now be part of the pinnacle of Australian motorsport. So for me, a couple of those career highlights include multiple state and championship wins in karting, and then progressing into Formula Ford and Formula 3, which was the first sort of open wheel categories that you get accustomed to in circuit racing before progressing into what they call the second tier Supercars Championship. So essentially, young guys trying to aim and compete and show what they're capable of to try and earn themselves a jersey to be part of the top 25. So for me, I got won the Super 2 Championship in 2017 and got my first Bathurst start as a co-driver in the same year. And that earned me the opportunity to step up into the main Supercars Championship in 2018 and haven't looked back. So for me, this is my 6th year in the sport, in the top tier of Australian motorsport. I've had a podium, I've had a pole position, but I haven't had that elusive race win yet. So hopefully in 2023, running the number 3 Ford Mustang with the new team at CoolDrive Racing with the Blanchard Racing, we're hoping for a big year ahead, and excited to see what we can achieve together.
That's fair. We've got our fingers crossed for you. Now, we're going to put it out there. We know that you don't have a disability, and we normally talk to people that are in the disability industry. Now, we're going to put it out here. We're super excited to have you on because we know from my input with people that have disabilities and trying to get them to driving, that once they get driving, there's a few out there that are really interested in maybe taking it to the next level, trying to drive fast. That burning desire underneath is still there, whether you've got a disability or not. Now, I've got a bunch of mates that do track days, they do hill climbs and all that kind of stuff. There's no reason why people with disabilities can't do that as well. So that's why we've got you on, to have a bit of a chat about that. But first of all, we've also got you on because we know that you're an ambassador for the Get Home Safe Foundation. Now, we spoke to Darren Davis in episode 54, who's the founder of the Get Home Safe Foundation. But do you just want to talk to us about your connections with the Get Home Safe Foundation for us, and talk to us why you're passionate about that link to the foundation?
Yes, thank you. I've been a proud ambassador for the Get Home Safe Foundation for a number of years now, actually from when it first started. And Darren approached me, being originally from South Australia, and Darren also being from SA as well. He was looking for like-minded South Australian identities to try and help and promote road safety. And for me, being involved in motorsport, we get tarnished with the same brush of, that we are hoons, we all seek adrenaline, and we terrorize the streets. And to be honest, from us involved in top tier motorsport as a profession, it's far from the truth. We do everything in a safe manner. We always do it on the racetrack, and when we want to go fast, we do it in a safe environment. And driving on the roads for me is something that I try to do as safely as possible, just like anyone else out there on the road, because we got more chances of having a fatality or having something serious go wrong on the road than more than what we would on the racetrack. We're surrounded by so many dangers, and more than likely by other people. So just trying to change that mentality and obviously just create awareness around road safety. For me, it's a personal subject that I'm trying to help make a difference. And last year we actually took it another step further, getting involved with the South Australian government in the lead up to what was the return of one of the biggest South Australia's biggest sporting event, with the Adelaide 500 in December last year. So we actually created a road safety campaign called essentially driving home the message of getting home safe from the event. And the key message there, what happens on the track stays on the track. And to have that high level support from the government, and to really take my association with the Get Home Safe Foundation was really special, and it's something I'm really proud of. And hopefully that key messaging that we put across that weekend was the difference between people having a good time at the event and also getting home safe.
And you did that campaign. Really... You did that campaign with Eli Mern as well, and we've had Eli on the podcast as well. He's way back in episode 3 or 4 or something like that. But he talks about what happens if you don't leave it on the track, and he's a shining light of reconciliation about, geez, I was an idiot and now I'm paying the price of it. He's accepted it and moved on, and is now doing all of that educational talk and so forth about what happens if you don't leave it on the track. So it's a great association.
I just want to chime in a little bit as well. But I'm actually been working with modified cars, being a certifying engineer since I was 12, and so a long time. And you're working and looking at vehicles that people are, for example, hotting up to drive on standard street roads. The thing that you just mentioned before is something that I've seen in, I guess, 20, almost 30 years of practice. Is one consistent thing is people that are racing cars are so safe on the roads because they get it out of their system on the track. And that's a very consistent message that I've heard over 30 plus years. And I guess that's also a little segue into people that are in this kind of disability world, and using, hand controls, and you're getting excited about getting on the road and so on. Well, if you want to take it that little bit further, we'll start looking into getting your car onto a track rather than, mucking around with your car on everyday roads, and that's a common theme I've heard, is people that race on tracks, they don't have a huge desire to go hooning around because they've had enough hooning on the weekend or whatever it was, right? So yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly. Look, and we're very fortunate in our country where there's lots of avenues close by where when we can do that in a safe environment. You know, if the worst case scenario happens where you crash your car or you leave the circuit and you soon work out where your limitations are, you've got ambulances at the circuit, you've got fire marshals, you've got everything at your disposal, and the most important part, you're in safety equipment. You've got a helmet on, you've got race suit on, so all these things make the environment that you've mentioned the best way possible to, you know, as you said, if you are an adrenaline junkie or you enjoy the thrill of going fast, you know, my message to everyone listening today is take it to the track and keep our loved ones and our friends and family safe on our roads because yeah, it's a message that doesn't get pushed enough and off the back of that too, you'll soon get a true appreciation of what it's like driving at speed because unfortunately what we do see when people are driving on the roads is that they find out where their limitations of skill is behind the wheel and in an unsafe manner on our roads, and that's generally when you see the worst case scenario where we see people getting hurt or other people getting hurt from other people's mistakes. So yeah.
Can I ask technical question about the cars? If you know, is there much electronics around the acceleration? Just a technical question. Do you know much about that or not?
In our particular supercar race car, there's not. So for this year, have actually what we got called fly-by-wire. So the actual throttle acceleration is electronically done, as opposed to a cable that we used to have in last year's spec supercar. But yeah, there's no traction control or anything like that. So the supercar itself is very raw. We have no ABS as well. So that's where the skill of the driver really comes into life and you know, really separates the guys from really knowing what they're doing behind the wheel as opposed to the ones that are a little bit less experienced.
But having fly-by-wire, I actually think I don't know if Brad knows where I'm going with it, but I actually think it'd be pretty easy to fit one of these cars out with if it's fly-by-wire, we could easily have like a trigger or a glove hand control type thing. And just a simple, because I did a V8 supercar race, like, you know, one of those fast lane experiences. And I noticed how there's a lot of bare bones in the car. So I reckon just putting a hand operated brake lever would be pretty easy. And some electronic controls on the accelerator to get someone on a track if they really needed to.
Yeah, exactly. Look, anything's possible with man and machine. I always say, you know, if you've got a welder and you've got an angle grinder, you can create anything. So never say what I say.
Yeah.
But there's a few famous racing car drivers out there competing in some really high-end racing categories. I mean, one of those is Alex Zanardi. Alex Zanardi, if you may have heard of him. He was a racing car driver in the 1980s, had an accident, and then made a comeback to racing car driving. There's a bunch of Billy Monga is another one. I'm just looking at a bit of a website. Another one's Nicholas Hamilton. So Lewis Hamilton's brother drives with a disability as well in a subcategory. There's actually more out there than people probably realize, and they're driving with hand controls. Most of them have had a spinal injury, but you know, or amputations like Alex Zanardi. So it is actually possible, and that's why we've got you on there. So if people do want to take it onto a track, are there things that people can do, Todd? Are there ways that people can actually maybe not get to supercar level? Maybe they can, but get to experience driving fast in a safe environment?
Yeah, for sure. You know, the best thing about today's technology is that opportunities are endless, and I dare say, dream big. And if you've got a dream, then just work out a way of how you can make it happen. Associate yourself with the right people, get in contact with the people that have maybe previously done it, because I'm sure people in this sector would be more than willing to help to try and achieve someone's dream. And you know, no doubt, you know, with people that are disadvantaged or got a disability that they maybe feel is holding them back, I'm sure there's people out there that are willing to help and make a difference. So yeah, as you said, you know, like for me, growing up as a kid, Alex Zanardi was an absolute hero for more reasons than one. You know, he was a legend on the track, off the track, the challenges that he's faced, but also the way that he bounced back more ways than one. It's quite an incredible story. So for those listeners that are tuning in today, he's definitely a name that you should look up for some great inspiration just in life in general. It's a really cool story. So yeah, there's some great examples there. You know, we mentioned to you guys earlier that there's a guy that I know that's in drifting, and he uses hand operated controls in the car to do some pretty epic drifting skills as we spoke about in that controlled, safe environment. So yeah, that's with today's technology, anything is possible. And I'd love to see someone that is can take it to the top of the sport, because like Alex Zanardi, he was racing in top tier DTM and GT3 racing just recently, so racing against the world's best touring car drivers on a world stage. So certainly anything is possible.
Is karting the first kind of entrance into racing? I've heard kind of commonly a lot of racers started when they were young karting. Do you have to kind of get into the kart? I mean, on a side note, I've actually just been looking up and there seems to be a lot of hand control kits for go-karts online. So it must be something common if you wanted to get into go-karting. But yeah, is it, do you have to start through go-karting, or can you sort of just do weekend days, or is there, because I know, being a little bit in automotive industry, and maybe you can comment on South Australia in general, there's a lot of private opportunities for you to get onto tracks, almost every weekend, around the place. As you said, you've got to get right insurances and pay a few fees and things like that. But even with your own car, you can typically get up there. Do you have much of it in SA as well?
The perfect thing about karting, it's like doing your apprenticeship in motorsport from a skills point of view. It teaches you racecraft. It teaches you the basics of understanding vehicle dynamics and setup and all those key things that I still use those same skills today that I learned through in go-karting when I was a kid. I was fortunate enough where I was in go-karting from the youngest age of 7, where I was legally able to compete, and I race go-karts. Well, I still race go-karts now. So I haven't really stopped, to be fair. I race karting in between my supercar events. Not as much as I'd like, but I'm very time poor. But karting it's super raw, very competitive. The racing's great, and it's the most affordable form of motorsport in our country still today. So it's great for so many reasons. But if go-karts is not really your thing, and you're looking to go, if you've got a track car that you'd like to convert to take it to the circuit, we've got the fantastic facilities and world-class facilities at the Bend Motorsport Park, just an hour out of the city, or if you're on the other side of town, and we've got the luxury of going to Malala Motorsport circuit as well. So, we've got 2 fantastic circuits and venues that are more than capable of, facilitating anyone that's wanting to take their car to the racetrack.
And that would be the same in every other state as well. You'd have Eastern Creek and wherever it is in your state. So it's not just South Australia that we're talking about with the Bend and Malala, but yeah, there would be the same in every state where you can get on a track and whether it's your little buzz box and see how fast you can make your cheap car go, your little Toyota Corolla or whatever it is, through to putting hand controls or whatever it is into a Mercedes or where would be, I'm pretty sure Ali would be pretty happy to put hand controls in a Lamborghini and see how fast that can go. There's all kinds of options to be able to get that experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm actually looking just online now. And there's, I guess the thing is, the reason why I mentioned the karting is I got a little personal thing. The last 12, 18 months, I've been part of a little go-kart comp, little kind of a Grand Prix they're running. So it's been really exciting. And one of the great things I like about the go-karting, I guess, is seems to be a lot safer in a way. When I say safer, as in, you can bang around the kart a little bit and you can kind of feel your limitations without losing money on damaging your own car, right? And the karts are pretty robust. So, you can hit the side wall a little bit, hit the tires. I mean, you're not going to be doing that often, but you can learn, like Todd said, those limitations and your limitations and those dynamics. And And just briefly, as we've been chatting, just looking up, and there's actually quite a few go-kart places around Australia that have go-karts with hand controls or tandem karts where you can have assisted controls. Like there's first one I'm seeing right now is in Dandenong in South Victoria, Melbourne, that they've got, go-karts with hand controls. So I think it's, I guess from someone who did it in the last 12 months and it was a lot of fun and you felt very safe and you could really push and understand the driving, I would recommend, maybe looking into that go-karting as a start.
Yeah, for sure. And, in every state, there is, obviously you can start out in high karting, see if it's for you. And the fortunate thing is in karting Australia, there is multiple circuits around the country in every state that's available for top tier competition. I know the circuit in Adelaide, my home track, Bolivar, they've recently done a track extension. There's circuit at Barossa, Mount Gambier, Monarto. That's just in South Australia. Most states have at least 5 to 10 tracks available, both within the city and in the rural areas too. So it's certainly the fantastic entry level form to motorsport if you're interested.
Yeah, that's pretty cool,
mate. It's been absolutely fantastic to have a chat to you. What does 2023 look like for you? Like you've got you're a sole driver at CoolDrive, is that right? So
that's correct. Yeah,
you're flying the flag for them. What's the goal for 2023?
As I mentioned before, I haven't had a race win in supercars. I've been very close on a few times, but for me, I'd love to try and get my first race win, and joining the team at Blanchard Racing and driving the number 3 CoolDrive Racing Mustang. It's a new era for the sport. So for this season, every single team and driver will have a brand new chassis. We've got new regulations for this season, so it means new chassis, new suspension componentry, new engines, which we haven't seen for 20 plus years. So there's lots of excitement in the sport itself, and I think it could be anyone's year. If we look at previous years, there's been a few guys and a few teams that have won a lot of the races, whereas I think this year the results could be certainly mixed up. And from my point of view, I see it as a great opportunity to get some good results. And as I said, I'm pushing hard. I've had a really busy off season, been training really hard, and feeling best prepared than what I ever have before. So I'm certainly trying to position myself to get the most out of myself and have a great year before going to plan.
Fantastic.
And
yeah, it does sound very exciting. Well,
what's your favorite track?
Look, being a South Aussie, I have to say the Adelaide 500 Street Circuit. It's close to the heart, but it's just a proper driver's track. Like it's super challenging. There's no room for error. Concrete walls, lots of bumps. It's the ultimate thrill.
Okay.
Can't beat it.
Sounds cool.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, well, get there to Adelaide 500. It's worth it. It's a great event. Goes over multiple days. It's lots of fun. And as a South Australian, I can't speak highly of it. I'm so glad it's back as well. So get there and get to any event and cheer on Todd. We're right behind you. As a board member of the Get Home Safe Foundation, I thank you for being an ambassador. You're a great ambassador for the foundation. You speak a great message, and we thank you a lot for coming on today, but we can't let you get away without our final question. We ask this to every person that comes on, but before we do, we just want to acknowledge our sponsors one more time for making this show possible, Mobility Engineering and Williams OT. Todd, we've learned a lot over this podcast that cars are more than just from getting from A to B, and talking to yourself, it's obvious that it's something different for you. But is there a meaningful trip or something special that you've done in a car that means more than just getting from A to B? Maybe it's the racing. Maybe it sounds a bit stupid asking you whether it's that or not, but maybe you've got another special event that you've done in a car that means so much to you.
I've always had, I feel like you always have like a bit of a personal connection with the car. It's sort of, I call it the other girlfriend. You jump into a car and it's, you feel like you're connected. And I know probably that may sound silly to some people, but it's sort of man and machine. It's that bonding between equipment and, and for me growing up, I've always been a car person, I guess, and always loved my classic cars. And my family was always a bit of a one-eyed Ford supporters, I guess, if you call it. So yeah, classic cars mean a lot to me, and yeah, just lots of fond memories. My dad used to have a little Mini Cooper, and you know, we used to go driving up in the hills together. So I just remember as a kid, you know, hardly being able to see over the dash, and you know, just cool memories like that. Just growing up, being surrounded by cars, and you know, it created such a true appreciation for what cars mean to me. And you know, I guess that's what's created my way of life of, you know, racing and being competitive is one thing, but just cars in general, I love working on them. I love driving in them, whether it be fast, slow, or different. You know, I drive the race car on race weekends, but you know, I've got a 1977 XC Falcon. It's a 6-cylinder. It's got a three on the tree column shift. It's back to basics, and you know, it's just that element of feeling like you're in control of a piece of machinery, and you feel like the car's talking to you. So
Is that the one on your website, the yellow one?
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I just looked it up now. It's I actually have a 1970 combi, and it was funny because I bought two. I bought one as a I literally bought it just to make money because it was kind of a bit of a trend. Then I took it for a drive, and then I fell in love with it because you kind of had to romance the car to get it to move. You know, you had to get to know it. It took like 5 or 6 drives to actually get it to start moving. And then, and I just love that kind of experience of you gotta kind of get to know the personality of the machine and work with it. Otherwise it's not going anywhere, and it's not going to do anything you want it to do, you know? So, and that's the same as what you're talking about.
Yeah. And didn't I see you in the classic Adelaide rally with your dad?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty cool story actually, because the last time my dad did the Adelaide rally, or in a rally, was 1995. So I was only 6 weeks old, and that was actually when I did my first lap around a racetrack with in the back seat of the car at the time, around what was still then the Adelaide Grand Prix circuit. So yeah, you know, fast forward 27 years later, and I was driving this time, and we actually did it with the event organisers' 1978 Porsche, which was really cool. I'd never driven a Porsche before, and yeah, we had a lot of fun. So yeah, cars is, as I said, cars means more than just a piece of machinery or a piece of equipment or disposable item. It's yeah, it's our way of life, I guess.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Well, a huge thank you to you, Todd. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. For our listeners, if they've got any questions for you and they want to get in contact, what's the best way that they could do that? Is it through the website or Instagram, or is there a link that they can follow to get in contact with you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm very active on social media. So yeah, if you've ever got a burning question and would like to know more, feel free to send me a message on either Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. I'm on all of those channels. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and more than happy to answer away.
Yeah, Todd did a Q&A the other day. So yeah, jump on there and put your question in there, and yeah, he gets back to all of them. So jump on there and join in one of those Q&As. So mate, it's been absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate your time and energy. I know you're in the middle of testing and preseason and all that kind of stuff. So we really thank you for taking some time out of your day today. Anybody listening to this, please press the like and share button. And yeah, mate, thank you.
No worries at all.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was awesome.
Stick around, everyone. As always, we're going to do our top 3 takeaways, Ali and I. But as we do, we're just going to say goodbye to Todd. Thanks, Todd. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, welcome back. In this section, we bring you our expert analysis and top 3 takeaways from the interview. This is where we provide our more than 30 years of joint experience in the industry, helping people with disabilities to drive and get out in the community in a safe and meaningful way. So, Brad, lesson number 1, how do we go?
Well, just want to say that we do not have 30 years of experience in racing cars, but this is about connecting it back to helping people with disabilities. But to start off with, our first takeaway is get on the track if you want to drive fast. Yeah, don't leave it to the roads. You know, South Australia right now, I mean, I know you're in Sydney, Ali, and I'm in South Australia, but the South Australian road toll this year is nuts and out of control. I don't know why. Nobody really knows why, but it is climbing almost every day. There's another fatality on the road. Highways are shut. the accidents, all this kind of stuff is happening way too often. Don't do it on the road. Don't do it up through the hills where there's multiple trees. Don't do it out on open roads. Get on the track. Do it where it's safe, where there's marshals. Do it in track days. Do it in a go-kart center. Do it somewhere where there's safety involved, please, is my takeaway. I'm on the Get Home Safe Foundation board. We've interviewed a few people now. Todd's on that as an ambassador for the Get Home Safe Foundation. Please get home safe to your family and do it on a track.
Yeah, I as I mentioned in that interview, I've been working in this road safety area like for 30 years now, or 29, 30 years since I was 12 with my dad. And that's the consistent thing I've always heard from people that are in racing. They understand the dynamics of vehicles a lot more, and they are very safe drivers because they know what the implications are because they're pushing those cars to the limits. And when you get onto the track yourself, as someone who has myself spent time go-karting and being into the cars, and recently I did a V8 supercar experience myself. Excuse the French, but you shoot yourself when you're in these situations. And when you're losing control and you're seeing that the car is going and you've got no chance of bringing it back once it starts losing control, then you're like, oh wow, this is real, And I did it in an enclosed environment, and I hit tires, and I hit a barrier, and everything's fine. Whereas if I was out there, I could have hit another car, or wouldn't have made it home, and so on.
Yeah.
So
the trees don't have tires around them. The trees don't have tires around them. The people's front fences don't have tires around them. They don't have runoff areas. It's just doesn't make sense to push the car to its limits when there's no room for runoff.
Yeah, and there's plenty of opportunity around that. And that, I think, segues us to that next lesson, which is push to get an opportunity out there, even if you think it's not available. There's I while we were doing this interview, I flicked over to another page on Google, and I just Google searched disability driving go-karts or disabled go-karts, and it came up with a myriad of links of disability organizations, go-karts companies all around the country that have these accessible products. And also there was a whole bunch of kits that you could buy to fit onto go-karts that could make it hand control accessible. So as someone who has done quite a bit of go-karting recently, it's a great and safe way to get into it. Go-karts, if you lose a little bit of control and you push it, you can kind of hammer the go-kart into the tires on the side of the track, and you're fine. And the go-kart's fine. They're really robust, strong little things. Whereas if you did it in your own car, you might damage your car and insurance is not going to cover it, and you have to pay for the repairs and so on. Whereas if you're hiring a go-kart, or even if you're using your own go-kart, very unlikely you're going to get that kind of damage. So it's a great way.
They're low and wide, and so really low center of gravity. So they kind of skim across the surface if you're out of control, rather than pitching and rolling and losing balance on the road. So it's a great environment. I've done a bunch of go-karting with my mates, and having that rivalry, it's great fun. There's no reason why people with disabilities, if they're into this type of thing or they want to challenge themselves, get on a track and have a go at go-karting. I'm sure that if you look this up, there's places in your local area. If not, go have a chat to them. A simple push-pull hand control and a little spinner knob on the steering wheel on those throttles.
Yeah, it won't be that hard to do. Well, as someone who's been involved in this, I know in the engineering side of it, I know, and I'll give myself a bit of a shameless plug. If you do want to go down that path and you're getting stuck, contact Mobility Engineering, because we have worked in that area a little bit, and we work with some of our partners overseas that actually do this in the go-kart area. So that's kind of why I'm pushing it. And also a little, a little challenge out there to the community. Myself and Brad, just before we came online, we've both been working with the NDIS for almost 10 years now, or even more. And we, again, not advice, but we have the opinion that we believe that you could probably get something like a go-kart solution funded if packaged the right way, because it's similar to doing sports, like sports wheelchairs and things like that. So if you are serious about that, it's a great activity. It's a great social activity. And if you like cars and you like machines and all that stuff, we think that definitely going to be possible to get it over the line with NDIS as well. So
even if it's a track day and you want a track day car with a roll bar and things like that, you're probably going to have to do the car. You probably have to do the roll bar. You probably have to do the 5-point harness and the helmet and all those type of things, because that's what Joe Blow would have to do in his car. But the second set of hand controls to go in your track day car, that might be different, and it would be worth exploring that with somebody that can do the AT application for you. You would have to show that you've got a passion. You'd have to show that you've given it a go and that it's not a whim and those type of things. Just like somebody who wants to run with prosthetic legs, they start running on their standard leg first and they really have a passion for it, and then they get the high advanced carbon fiber leg and they build up in legs and so forth. You would have to do something similar along those lines to show a real passion for it. So one of those places to go, first of all, might be those go-kart clubs that offer it. So if you've got a real passion for this area, there'd be ways to get it done. And also, we believe that you could probably get some NDIS funding if that passion can be shown, and that it's a worthwhile event and something that you really want to get involved in.
And just another last disclaimer, as I said, we haven't done a funding application or we haven't been involved, but we just think based on our industry, we think it's definitely possible. So
if you're an OT and you've done one, or you're a modifier and you know that somebody's done it, make sure you put a comment down below and let us know if there's some people out there that's done this and got some funding for it, if it's a real passion area of theirs. Right, talking about passion, let's go and talk about our third takeaway. What was our third takeaway?
So that was that whole concept Todd talked about, the kind of the man versus machine, or man and machine together coming together. And when he was talking about that, the first thing I thought about was we get a lot of this in the disability industry, particularly with assistive technology, all kinds of assistive technology. The first picture that actually popped into my mind as soon as he mentioned that was one of our past interviewees, Leanie Dean, and how she was going on about her Magic Mobility wheelchair basically being, she was so passionately, emotionally connected to her wheelchair because it gives her so much access to everything. And we see so much of this, I guess, relationship with your technology because it gives you so much in life.
Yeah, but not only that, her love affair with her Land Rover Discovery. Yeah. And we spoke to her about that passion of putting hand controls in her car that's done more than 300,000 kilometers. And that's the car that she desperately wanted to put the hand controls into, because that's her love and joy. And that's the car that she wants to drive every day. Not the car that NDIS wanted to have, that's less than 5 years of age and got a 5-year warranty and that type of thing. It's about that passion of the machine and being in love with a machine. Now, I'm not going to be driving a Discovery. That's not my thing. It's not my desire in regards to a car to drive, but it doesn't mean that you can't. And people have strong connections with cars, and we saw that coming through with Todd as well.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, on a side note, it's actually really good to let yourself explore that with the machinery around you in this industry, particularly because it's good for your mental health. It's a great like we've said, it seems a bit strange, but you can actually have a loving relationship with a car or a wheelchair or a product, because that thing is looking after you and looking after your life. And so as long as you look after it, just like anyone else in your life, it will keep looking after you. So it is an emotional connection, and it is really something that's valuable within our industry as well. So it was just really nice to highlight that.
Talking about in our industry, what about from PME, Jerome, and his passion for the cars and the relationship with cars as well? If you want to go back and listen to a couple of episodes where people really talk about a passion about cars, Todd, this interview, the interview with Leone and the other one with Jerome from PME. And make sure you go back and check those out, do a little bit of a search through. And we've done over 60 episodes now, so you'll have to do a bit of searching, but there's so many great interviews out there. So as we wind up this episode, we just, again, want to do a shout out to our sponsors, Mobility Engineering and Williams OT, that helped bring us this interview today with Todd and all of the other interviews in the past, like with Leone and also with Jerome. So Williams OT do driving assessments and rehab, and they bring together all the pieces of the puzzle to assist people with disabilities to reach their driving and community mobility goals. And Mobility Engineering is a team of passionate and dedicated people focused on bringing Australia's largest range of suitable transport solutions for all walks of life, and that can include hand controls for go-karts and your your racing cars as well. And as we say in every episode, the advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. So if you've got any queries about what can work for you, make sure you get in contact with your local OT or mobility dealer and set yourself up with a trial, but make sure you talk to them about your passion for a racing car or a racing go-kart or whatever. And let's see if we can get some of these over the line as well with the NDIS for funding, because we want you to be in that driver's seat. We want you to be in that going fast driver's seat, but make sure you do it in a safe environment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you have done it, let us know. We'd love to have you on. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks very much.
All right. See you in the next episode, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Cheers, bye.
Thanks for listening to the Drive Able podcast with Brad Williams and Ali Akbarian. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show note, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @Drive Able Podcast for more information.